All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Mastering Midlife, How to Thrive When the World Asks the Most of You. I'm your host, Mark Silverman. Today, I have a very, very, very special guest. In fact, the most special guest I've had on the program since I started it. My former wife, Robin Silverman, is here with us today. Robin, say hello.
Hello.
And Robin's a little nervous to be on. But let me tell you something about Robin. Robin is an accomplished person with several degrees, one of the most educated people I know. She's won awards for video production. She's won awards for sign language interpreting and music. She's done all kinds of things through her life that have always inspired me and always colored outside the boxes and really pushed me to be a better person. For me, the greatest thing she's ever done is she's the mother of our two children, Zach and Jake. But about 10 years ago, Robin and I decided to separate and eventually divorce. And we worked really, really, really hard to co-parent, to become friends, and to support each other through the whole thing. And we often joke about the thought of maybe writing a book called The Happy Divorce or The Loving Divorce, which, kind of sounds pretentious. But I think we've created something really special, and she's agreed to come on the show to talk with me about what we've done. Robin, again, you look really nervous, and that's why we don't have the video on, but thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Why would you even think about coming on and talking to me about this subject?
I thought about this today because I wanted to put myself in the right frame of mind to come have this discussion and why am I doing this? And one of the reasons is for the children. Because children whose parents go through divorce, I imagine it's very hard. My parents actually did not go through a divorce, but I know that when we were going through this, I was terrified to tell the kids. And our kids are doing great. So I'm so grateful for that. But one of the things early on that my lawyer said to me while we were going through divorce is she said, parents that get along, she said, the best measure, the best chances of success for the children are the parents getting along post-divorce. So among other reasons, I was determined to do that. And there are some other children out there whose parents are going through divorce.
So when you say children, you're not talking about just our children. You're talking about people who are listening to us, and your motivation is so that they can pass on to their children what hopefully we passed on to ours.
Yes, I'm talking about everyone's children. And if a person's going through a divorce, if you're listening and you're going through a divorce, fast forward, I'm doing great today. Back then, it was devastating. And I just lost my track. But if you're devastated, if you're listening and you're devastated, one, you can get through this and you can be filled with joy again. And two, having that, and some people don't have children, but if you do have children, having that, keeping that in mind is, I don't even have words for it.
Well, I think it was central for us to have strength because, just to let people who are listening know, I didn't prepare Robin for this conversation. I didn't prepare myself. I didn't prepare any questions. I wanted this to be a very raw and real conversation. This isn't a how-to, and this isn't a we did it great, so you can do it great too. We're not writing a book. But when Robin and I started going through this, I remember you telling me you could barely get out of bed. And I remember being depressed and suicidal. And we were not in great shape. What I do remember is that you and I were committed to the children. We were committed to whatever was happening. I remember you saying that you could cry in front of the kids, but you weren't going to fall apart in front of the kids because that was some advice you had gotten. Let's talk about what it was like when we first decided to separate, because you and I gave it everything we had to try and make it work. And if people could put resources towards and effort towards and earnestness towards making a marriage work, I think we did it. Would you agree?
Yes.
That was a one-word answer. What was it? So again, we may get emotional on this, but what was it like when we first separated?
Well, so to me, having a marriage and children and an intact family was the most important thing in my life. And it was something that was important while I was in the marriage, and it was something that was important before we ever met. That was my dream. That's what I wanted. And so, without going into details right now, when the marriage, when it was not my choice, the marriage ending was not my choice. And when the information was presented to me, I was blown apart. My world blew apart. I was devastated. So what can you say? I mean, I was really devastated, and I knew I had to get up each day and take care of my children, and that's what I did for a while, among other things.
What were the other things?
Well, this is pretty raw, but I was willing to be happy again. I was willing to have joy in my life again, but I didn't see any path to it, because this was my number one dream. I always thought I'd be big career person, all these
Because
things.
you were so you were a career person. You were a very independent person, right? And when you had children, you threw yourself into being a mom and running a household.
Right. So I left career when I had children. I never thought I'd be a person that would do that, but it became very clear to me that that was what I wanted to do and what was next for me to do. And I didn't regret that I left, but that was my world. So I lost track of where we were.
So what you're saying is, you actually left the business world, which you were a career oriented person, mm-hmm. to become a homemaker, mm-hmm. a wife and a mother, mm-hmm. and then your marriage falls apart. Mm-hmm. And as you were taking care of the kids, as you were dealing with your own wounds, you said among other things, you were doing other things.
Oh, right. Okay. So while I didn't feel hope and joy, I felt, the opposite. I felt, if you think of concave, is that the right word, when things go in? Mm-hmm. I didn't feel hope and joy. I didn't see how it could ever be there again, but I did the things that you would do if you believed and trusted there would be. Mm. So even though I didn't believe it, I took the actions that a person would take if they thought there would be. I stayed in contact with the closest people to me, who were very encouraging, positive people. This is a whole other discussion, but I delved very deeply into relationship with God. And that's a whole other discussion, but that was a whole process to form such a tight relationship. But it wasn't like, oh, this thing is, my dream's gone, I'll just be best friends with God. Like, it didn't go A-B. It was a process, a very long process. So I did the things that a trusting person would do without, even though I didn't have that hope.
Interesting to hear you say that, because for me, I had no hope and I didn't expect any hope. And I only did the things that I knew to do, which was go to work, pay bills, and not die. Right? That was, for me, I didn't think I was ever going to have joy. I didn't think anything was ever going to be good again. Even though I initiated the divorce, I felt, like a complete failure. And I thought if I took care of everybody financially, and it was actually something you said once, you often talked about, about suicide. You often talked about like there's always a reason to put one foot in front of the other, and that you're always worthwhile. You said that to me quite often because I think you sensed that I wasn't doing so great, and I just decided that me being here was better than me not being here. And if I provided financially, and if I lived near, so I, near you guys and fixed something that you needed, or or was there for the kids, then I would survive as long as that was needed. So that was my way through finding joy, finding love, finding life was a surprise to me. It was a survival mechanism, right? So that was pretty deep. So how did you stay connected to me? Because there were years where you were angry at me. There were years where you were really supportive of me. There were years when you were trying to make it work again. There were, like you went through so many ins and outs of how you related to this, and to evolve to the place. And I can't wait till we get to the place where we've evolved to. But I'm really want people to know the journey. Like we could say, God, we've gotten to be such good friends. We're politically diverse. We're, like all these other things, but we went through hell to get here, and we really did the work. um, Talk about like the different relationship you had to me and being a co-parent.
I have to think about that.
By the way, everybody who's listening, I really appreciate if you're sticking with us. This is just a raw, honest conversation, and I'm having Robin think about things that she's not prepared to. I've got my podcast voice on, so I'm prepared, but this is new to her, and we just wanted to share something real with you.
Well, I'll just jump forward to one place. We actually were getting along very well, and you were very generous financially. You were very generous with being of help, just practically. I felt like you were trying to be as kind as you could under the circumstances. You stayed in. You were always a good father. Stayed in connection with the children, and you were good to me. Obviously, not like you left. So, like that's notwithstanding, and that was huge. But given that was what was happening, so there was that. And then I remember my brother saying to me, I was saying, we're, it was a couple of years in, the edge had come off, and when the edge of devastation, so I was functioning, I was living life, and I wasn't happy yet, but I wasn't in that deep sadness. And I remember saying to my brother, like, we get along really well, like we're good, it's solid. And him saying, nothing against you, because my brother loves you and you have a good relationship, but he said, Robin, he said, it could change on a dime. And that really took me aback, because I was feeling secure in that we're parenting, we're getting along, we're showing okayness to the kids. And anyway, I just filed that. And then shortly after that, you changed careers.
Oh yeah. We'll get there.
And the details were kind of important, just about financial.
Go for it.
So I was scared to get divorced for many reasons. And one of them was financial. I was afraid, like, I have health insurance now, and plus emotionally, I'm not even going to get into the emotional, spiritual reasons of being afraid of divorce, but financially I was, and took a lot of work. And I remember I finally could talk to you about money when I came up with this idea. I'm sort of back weaving, but I didn't want to work out the money because I was afraid of either getting taken advantage of or taking advantage of. Let me say that again. I didn't want to be taken advantage of, nor did I want to take advantage of another person. And I couldn't see how I could not be one or the other.
Because there was urges in both ways.
Yes. And
right? your fears are like, I'm going to be taken advantage of. And then because you're such a caring person, you're like, am I taking advantage of this other person? And that tension is really hard to manage.
And,
and then you have people giving you input,
yes.
Some people saying, oh my God, take him for everything he's worth. And then you have other people, so yeah, you have the whole world is giving you opinions on how you should feel, act, and all that.
I'm jumping around here, but it just reminded me of one thing I did was I don't want it. People are well-meaning. They all have their own stories, but there's a lot of encouragement to be angry at the person that you're splitting up with and to look at everything wrong with them. And a lot of encouragement from other people. And I didn't want to do that. I mean, I wanted to see what was wrong in terms of things, about you. I didn't want to pretend that that wasn't there, but I didn't want to just, become this person that just, I'm angry and you wronged me and blah, blah. Yeah. So I made my circle of people I talked to smaller, and I only talked in depth to people who didn't encourage that, who supported me and encouraged me, and might say I don't like that, but didn't say, oh, he's bad. I wouldn't have conversations in depth with people who did that. Around money, there's all these people, lawyers, people, you better protect yourself. You have to protect yourself. And I'm not saying that people don't. I mean, there are people that take advantage of other people, but and I'm very grateful that that was not our case. So jumping forward, what I was finally able to come to, how I could look at money, was to say, I win when we both win.
I win when we both win.
I win when we both win.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I have to win or Mark's going to win and I'm going to lose, but this needs to be, we both win. And that's how I'll win, he'll win, the kids will win, we'll all win. I mean, especially if I want my kids to be strong, solid kids, I don't want their father to be suffering and being taken, so I win when we both win. And I actually wrote that on the top of my paper when we'd sit down to talk, and you may not know, but that was there at the top. But anyway, it took me so long to be able to, talk to you about divorce, work those terms out. And we finally worked it all out, and it was excruciating. And we did it mostly with each other. We had lawyers, but we mostly talked to each other.
And we both instructed our lawyers not to take advantage of the other.
And finally, and it was terrifying. And I sent it to my lawyer and I said, okay, it's good to go. And that was years of prep. And she sent it to your lawyer, or I don't remember the exact thing, but you came over that night to see the kids or talk to me. I don't remember why. And you said, I just quit my job. Everything has to change.
Yeah.
And I think you gave me your lawyer's card.
I remember none of this, so go on.
And you were really scared because you had just quit. How long have you been in that job?
Which
the sales?
Oh, and when I became a coach.
Right.
So we're talking about when okay. But I talked to you before I did it, and you said you supported me to do it.
Right.
I talked to you. I talked to my mother. I talked to all the people I was supporting.
I'm not saying that I didn't support you to do it or that you shouldn't do it, but the words were, I said, did you get the document? Did your lawyer get your document? And you said, I just quit my job. Everything has to change.
Wow. Don't see. This is good. I don't remember that.
Well, you were scared, I think.
That was that ripped my soul out, because when I was talking to my coach about changing careers, I said I can't do it. Like my whole identity, everything about me, whether I was worthwhile being on this earth, had to do whether I took care of my parents, whether I took care of you, whether I took care of So when you say everything was a win-win, I didn't think of things that way. I thought of things as long as Robin wins, as long as my parents win, as long as everybody's taken care of, everything's okay. I never even thought about it that way. It wasn't until later that I put myself on the list and said, I'm going to spend money on myself. I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to do that. And then the thought of, oh, Mark can do his own career and do his best. And I also, I do remember coming over saying, and I'm going to guarantee you this amount of money for this amount of time. I just didn't want it to be a legal thing, because I'm not going to make that kind of money anymore.
Well, let me jump forward. You were extremely generous, and you were even more generous than the divorce terms.
Right.
So going forward, you more than fulfilled your agreement, your commitment, your integrity around that. Going backwards in that moment in time.
Oh, sure.
And you can edit this part out if you want, but you said, you may have to go back to work. which in and of itself, like, it's not like I shouldn't work, but we had this
We
long-standing
had this agreement
agreement.
that you would stay home until the kids were out of high school.
So it was suddenly everything just changed, like on a dime.
Right.
And we had overall, there was a conciliatory energy between us. And in that moment, I didn't know what was going on. And
So I just want to stop and say, uh, for whatever messiness and however I did that, because it was really hard. I'm sorry if any of that was harsh, any of that was a surprise, any of that was because I didn't. This is the first time hearing of this, like because I don't remember it that way, right? Of course I don't. I just want you to know that that's furthest from what I would want.
and I'm not repeating this to say, you did something bad. I'm just saying how I dealt with challenging times.
I want you to be completely honest on this
and
conversation.
Because I think this is important for listeners.
Sure.
Anyway, we all have our moments. I certainly have my times where I'm not on my beam, and I'm not even saying you weren't. I think you probably weren't on your beam right then, and that's okay. But for me, it was like a coming together of my biggest fear was putting this divorce, making it official, sending in the document saying, yes, let's pull the trigger. And then you saying everything's got to change. You may have to, you can whatever, go back to work, which was not in our agreement. And all of a sudden I'm like, what? And we actually started arguing and raising our voices, which is when we were married, we would raise our voices sometimes in front of the kids, which I actually don't think I don't think, we should try to, but it's just real life. People do that. But we hadn't in our separation raised our voices.
No, yeah, because we argued when we were married.
Yes. Ugh. But we were, I think, because everything was already sensitive, we were careful, and we started raising our voices. And I just went upstairs. And I actually called a very dear friend of mine who was like my mentor. And she calmed me down and helped me recenter and just trust the bigger picture. And I came down and I didn't even talk about it, and you didn't talk about it. It was if that conversation didn't happen. And I didn't know what to do anymore, because I thought, is this that moment that my brother talked about? And that it's not just going to change. It's not like financially, but are we not going to get along? Is it because I felt some aggression from you coming towards me, and I don't even, maybe it wasn't real, or maybe even if it was, I think you were afraid of, you sure. Just, left this career to have no salary and have to build from scratch. So where I went to is, God, like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's right. Just, you show me how to please you. That's it. Period. And I was really surrendered. Whatever that meant, I didn't know what that meant. But so I just stopped trying to make something be any specific way. Just trust God, that if I do what God wants, it'll be the best for everybody. And that was it. How I dealt with you during what could have been a difficult time.
Sure. And I got to tell you, I appreciate that. Because it has been an interesting road since that time, and no, I really have seen us both grow in that direction, so I appreciate that. So let's talk about our co-parenting, because one of the things that I thought really worked as a couple, a married couple having children, is we read some of the same books, and even if we disagreed on things, you were maniacally adamant you're a passionate person, that we always check with each other when we're making decisions about the kids, when we talk about the kids, and this is when we were married. And that spilled over to when we got separated and divorced, is, you would check with me on things with the kids. You would ask me to check with you with things on the kids. And if we ever deviated from that, you would call me on it, or you would come clean about it. And you were really emphatic that you and I still co-parented. We were both parents. We were never going to disparage the other to the children, which, again, was another gift that I don't, like, I work with a lot of people who are getting divorced. And the viciousness and the hurt that happens. And even when we were hurt and even when we were precarious, we didn't, disparage each other. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, you said it really well. And, honestly, at different points, like our relationship was important initially because I didn't want to get divorced. And then after, both as co-parents and because I care about you as a person, I just do. And, but specifically as a parent, I mean, at the end of the day, I've got my life, you've got your life. We've got whatever relationship or non-relationship we have, but these kids are growing up, they have two parents, and they're going to have their own life and hopefully have their own, partners and get married and have their own good life. And it just makes sense to me. Like, if I needed to vent, I had other people. I had a few very close-knit few people that if I could vent, and I would go vent with them. But I did not vent with the kids because I feel that could harm my children, our children.
That's just such a good point, because a lot of parents do vent with the kids, especially if the kids are teenagers and almost adults. They'll vent with the kids because they're more peer, their friends, and it's like, and you kind of get to save your ego. And I really appreciate that you didn't do that. And
same both ways.
Yeah, same both ways. Yeah, I do appreciate that. So how are you doing now?
I want to say one other thing. You're their father. I'm their mother. You're their father. Nothing that's like unbelievably significant. So they have this relationship with you that's theirs with you. And it's just such an important relationship. And nobody can take the place of their father. I mean, they can have other good relationships with other people, but and same with their mother. Now, I'm doing good. I just have a lot of joy in my life. I did a lot of growth as a result of marriage ending. I did a lot of personal growth. I grew about what was wrong in the marriage, what was my part, where do I need to grow. But I also let other things come up, bigger themes came up for me as to things that were going to block me from having a fuller life. And I did that work. And it involved marriage, it involved love, it involved who am I? I don't know, my whole world opened up. So that now the highest dream was not marriage and kids, even though I think it's an amazing, wonderful thing, incredibly important. My world opened up, and I just feel I am just very alive. I mean, I have all these passions that I follow. I sing and I write and I work and I return to my profession and I exercise and I have very good relationships with people and friends and community, and just my whole attitude has changed. And this is, nothing, like, I'm a happier person than I was. Not that, I think people could be happy and happier in marriage, like with all of the stuff I have, plus be married. So it's
actually, what I will tell you is I see joy in you that I never saw before. I saw happy at times. I saw exuberant, passionate. Never seen joy in you, and now I see joy in you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just feel so alive, and just anything is possible.
Beautiful. All right. So thank you for bringing us to this point. So for this last chapter, you and I have always lived walking distance from each other. We're talking about all the emotional ups and downs and ins and outs, but practically, you and I have been in each other's lives walking distance, walking into each other's houses, and just, really, taking care of each other's dogs, that kind of stuff, for this whole time. And now I'm moving only 30 or 40 minutes away, but it feels like I'm moving halfway across the country. And for me, I can barely stop crying. Like, I'm getting upset about it now. The thought of me uh, moving away from you and the kids, and our kids are grown. People roll their eyes at me every time I talk about this. How old are your kids? Oh, they're 20 and 23. And but I'm like, you're my family, right? So, we've created a modern family, however that looks. But you said something really profound to me. When I was asking about what I should do and all that stuff, you said, I can't. You said you couldn't help me with it because you had your own feelings. And then you came to, it's actually time for, you to go figure your thing, and for me to have my relationship with John and go off and do it, and the kids are going to go do their thing. How is that how are you doing with that right now? Like, because again, you're in a good place spiritually, you're a good place intellectually. How are you now with the chapter changing? Because that's one of the things that keeps making me cry, is the chapters changing, with me moving away, with our son possibly moving, and all that, then moving on. How are you doing with that, with the now the real empty nester kind of thing?
So I have some feelings about it. I'm going to go to a different place.
Not sure.
And I think it'll be good.
You told me it was going to be good, so I'm believing you it's going to be good.
I think it's good. Certainly, you have your relationship, your partner, this is your life. You need to support that and be in that. And I think that's good for you. I think if something is the best for you, it's the best for everybody. So, I think God wants us all to do the best, and it all works for everybody. It's not like one person loses and one person wins. And for me, I feel like something else is going to open up in my life.
That's what I was looking for. That's what I was kind of leading for that, is that with what you've done with your spirituality, with all the work that you've done, and what I see in you, that's what you showed me, was this is opportunity for you to see what the next chapter opens up for.
You mean for me?
For you, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, we don't know, but I do want to tell one other story.
You got this. We're already way over time. People are sitting in the car. They can't go into work because this is such riveting radio.
It's kind of funny, but I remember when I was still like holding on to the marriage, or to not letting go. I remember saying to you one time, you would sometimes you and the kids would do something together as a family. And I think you invited me, or something came up with you to join you and your partner, John. And I said, it will never be the three of us. And you joked, you said, well, whatever. So then shortly after that, John got really, really, really sick. And he's fine now. He's fine now, thank God. But he got really sick. And
that's when you had the flu and you brought him Gatorade.
And McDonald's milkshake. Yeah. Because how sick was he? It was 2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks.
And his fever was like over 104, and it wouldn't break, and they weren't giving him antibiotics.
And I was giving him green juice.
And I was worried about him. And I really care about John. I love John. I like John. And I was like, he's not eating, he's not drinking. What do you mean? And I was truly concerned. And I said, what are you giving him? And he said, well, green juice, because you were like into this health thing. I'm like, this green juice, does he like green juice? And you're like, no. I'm like, what does he like? And you said, McDonald's milkshakes. I'm like, what flavor? And you told me. So I went right to McDonald's, got the milkshake, got a ton of Gatorade.
You brought a case of Gatorade.
And then he started drinking it, right?
Yeah.
And that shifted me from it'll never be the three of us to now, I've had dinner at your house with you and John.
We had Thanksgiving together. We've gotten in the car. John. The five of us have gotten into the car and gone to family functions.
And honestly, I feel funny. I love John. I think John's a great guy, and I enjoy my relationship with him. So that was like a funny thing that it would never. And then John got sick, and then that shifted it. And now that's not true anymore.
Beautiful. So what would you, any parting thoughts for the people listening?
Just if you're newly going through a divorce at any stage, um, you know, I know how painful it could be. Whether especially if the other person left. I don't know what it is being the person that leaves, but I'm sure that's really hard too in its own way. But um, it feels like you'll never be happy again, and um, that's okay that it feels that way. Uh, you don't need to try to make yourself falsely happy or snap yourself out of it. But it's not true. And not only can you be happy again, but you can maybe even be happier than you were before the problem happened in the first place, before the loss happened in the first place. And that's not to make anything less of the marriage that we had, but it's just to share true hope.
Got it. Thank you. It has been my pleasure to share the wisdom of the woman that I've had in my life for longer than I was without her, and I hope you guys got a lot out of this conversation. Thank you for sticking with us. If you're still with us, this was again just us having a real conversation about what we've gone through, so that maybe someone else can glean something from it. Stay supported. Pick your friends really carefully. Pick your support people really carefully. Stay connected. Write, journal, talk to God, talk to people. Don't do it alone. And both Robin and I can share that there is life after this, and there can be a beautiful, even more beautiful life on the other side if you do your work. And again, I love what Robin said. The kids are the most important. You can actually have our kids are at the World Series together today. They're doing great because we co-parented and we love them. Okay, Robin has to say one more thing.
I remember, it's really important for children, I think, to have the model of a healthy relationship between parents to help them be able to have that in their life. It's not to say they can't, but I think it goes a long way to help. And I was talking to this mentor friend of mine, and I was saying, my kids, they didn't have parents that stuck together. Their parents got divorced. They don't have that model. And she said, oh, but they do. She said, you too have supported each other. You've gotten along. You've worked together. You have given them a positive model.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way to end. To everybody who's listening, just tons and tons of love. I appreciate your time and attention. Have a great rest of the day.